You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back to another episode. Another fine quality episode of 91 Reasons. What a bizarre turn things have taken in the last few days. I put a post on Facebook where I said I was extremely grateful and amazed, simply amazed at the reach of what this show can do. And it's weird when I say this show because it's, other than occasionally having a guest star on the show or those Homestuck episodes, like it really is just me as the show. I act as producer, star, editor, grip, best boy, you name it, and I'm the guy on the show. So it's amazing, simply amazing how many people are listening and how important the show, as silly as it is, how important the show has become. It's no big revelation to say that the show is important to me because I'm the guy that decided to do this. So, I must be passionate about it. I must want to do this. I must want to sit at a microphone for an hour or 2 hours at a time because something in me says I've got these stories and they need to get out, and this is a great way to do it. This is the modern day equivalent of everybody gathering around the campfire and listening to Grandpa spin yarns that turned into everybody gathered around the old Philco radio, getting the station in clear, so that we could all hear the latest serials and the news and the things that were important to us. And then it became the television. When Jack Ruby was shot live on TV, as Dennis Leary said, like at that point, TV had arrived. We were showing not just the aftermath of history, but history itself live. So when he said, hang on, you can't leave, who knows what could happen? TV became the thing. TV was the thing forever until the internet came around, I just had a moment where I sounded like Dr. McCoy from Star Trek 3. Oh, here comes Genesis. Was it Star Trek 2 that he does that speech? We're going to do it for you in 3. Who needs 7 days to make a planet? Is there somebody out there who gets all these references, or are they just for me? I don't know. I don't know. But I have heard a lot from people lately on things that the show means to them, whether they're going through tough times and the show is like talking to a friend who doesn't let you get a word in edgewise, or if you're a big fan of something and I'm talking about it and you're nodding your head going, oh my God, he's saying exactly what I'm thinking. Or, oh my God, the panties episode, what a strike of lightning that was. There are people who've told me they made the mistake of listening to the panties episode while driving, and a few times they almost drove off a cliff. They were laughing so hard. Well, I am glad that my misery can bring you enjoyment, because that's really all I'm here for, to cut my soul open, bare it for you, and then have you laugh at me. Because why should you be any different than the girls in high school, right? Anyways, well, I've got 2 or 3 things I have to get through in this episode that are very important, and it's just so interesting to me. Like, I started the Patreon page because someone had told me, it was my friend Robbie from Knott's Berry Farm. I work with Robbie, and he told me about this thing called Patreon, where it's a lot like Kickstarter, except that instead of just a one-time run the campaign in 30 days, if you make your goal, you get the money. Patreon was, hey, it's a little more laid back, man. Whatever people pledge, that's what they're pledging, that's what you get. And that's really cool because, a few people who have donated $1, they don't even notice it out of their account, but it does add up. And like I said, the Patreon account is to help me pay for the hosting of the episodes, because when I started doing the show, It was a pretty trivial $9.95 a month, and then it became $16, and now it's $25, and before very long, it's going to be $50 a month because I keep posting these episodes, and some of them are 2 hours long, so that eats up all that storage. So I'm just wrestling with a way to keep all the episodes intact. And I know that I have friends who are very good at this, like Doug at Season Pass, who knows exactly how to do all this. So unfortunately, Doug lives many hours away. So next time he's down, I will grill him on all the intricacies of podcast hosting and how he does it so well, because some of his episodes are incredibly long. They're very entertaining, and they don't feel like they're 2 hours, but they're like, oh my God, it's 2 hours. And they're all hosts. He has 300 episodes, I could only dream of getting to 300 episodes. I'm looking forward to somewhere down the line very soon getting to 50. And I have no idea what I'm going to do for my big 50-show extravaganza, but I'll have to come up with something exciting. But this show is the direct result of the Patreon campaign. And my good friend Hendel, who is a big Not Scary Farm fan, he actually won the big Not Scary Farm fan contest by mounting this huge campaign where, using an offhand remark that I made at the Scary Farm preview night about how the winner would get to come to Haunt every night and get a VIP dinner and a VIP tour, I offhandedly said, and at the dinner I will cut your meat. So it became a whole cut your meat campaign. And you know what? I made good on that promise, and I tracked him down through his Twitter feed to a restaurant at Knott's. He was having dinner one night, and I cut his meat as promised, because I don't break a promise. So this episode is directly the result of Hendel's pledge of $35 to the Patreon page. And let me just say right here, thank you, Hendel. Thank you, Hendel. Your donation means the world. Along with everybody else on the Patreon page. I have not forgotten about you, Michael. The movie I want to review for you, I can't find. So I ordered off eBay. It'll be here this week, and I'll have it up as soon as it gets here and I watch it. And the reason I didn't pick another movie off your list is when you see what movie I'm doing for this one, they're kind of related. So I wanted to just do like a 1-2 punch of keeping in the same theme. So because of Hendel, we're going to be talking about the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is a cult classic of the nth degree, maybe the ultimate cult movie. But before we get into that proper, I just wanted to say very quickly, not quickly, I mean, you say it, I'm going to say something very quickly. No, I just want to say, we have a listener named Sean Rader, and it's his birthday, or it was yesterday, I believe, the 12th, it's now the 13th. Sean, it was your birthday yesterday, and of course, not only during the show, but during the birthday announcement, the phone rings. Now, I was going to use this moment. I was really looking forward to this, actually. I was going to use this moment to answer the phone during the show and tell them that they're on the show as it continues to ring. But the phone I got, which is the Incredibles Incrediphone from Disney Pixar's The Incredibles, it doesn't work. So I can't even pick up the phone, and it stopped ringing. So I talked straight through it. Sorry about that, Sean. Well, Sean, happy birthday. Happy birthday, Sean, from T and Adeline. They love you very much, and they contacted me and told me it was your birthday and that you're such a big fan of the show, you would freak out if I said happy birthday to Sean. So I'm going to say it again. Happy birthday, Sean. I hope that you are as big a geek as me, and that you love all the geeky things and nerdy things that I like. Because you know what? That's really what makes the world go round. You're never going to see, like in football, when that Rice guy beat his wife in an elevator. Like, you're never going to see Mr. Spock doing that. I just can't see Mr. Spock beating up Uhura, And Uhura going, look, what's between me and Mr. Spock is between me and Mr. Spock, and it's really nobody's business. And if he wants to slap me around, that's my business. Like, I just don't see that happening. I love nerd geeky stuff because it's exciting, it's gentle to some degree, right? It forces you to think about different galaxies and universes and different choices you could have made, like, again, Back to the Future. It always goes back to the future. When George hits Biff at the end, it alters his life. And life is about infinite choices, infinite possibilities. I didn't know who T was before she contacted me. But now that I've got an email from her and she's told me what the show means to you, Sean, how can I not say happy birthday? I mean, that's what we're on this planet for. We're on this planet to do what we can for other people. This show, like I've always said, is for my kids so that when they get older, they can put a flash drive in or swallow a pill, whatever it is, in the future, and hear me talking about my life and what I liked and what I was about. I was just thinking about this and talking to somebody else. What would you give for 100 hours of your dad talking about what he was about? I would give anything for that. I have a box of his letters, and eventually, very soon, I promise, I am going to read some of those letters and explain his crazy story and his very sudden end. But I would give anything. I don't even know what his voice sounded like. I have no memory of that. So my kids, through the marvelous invention of the internet and podcasting and affordable recording materials and devices, are going to have all that. And that's what we're here for. So when I say that I've connected with this guy, Hindle, and he was kind enough to give me a lump of money to keep my show going, and this show is the direct result of that, that's a pretty cool thing. Who would have predicted that? I certainly would have. I don't know who's listening or what it means, but the feedback that I get is so gratifying. So, thank you to Hindle. Thank you to Sean for listening to the show and being into the same things that I'm into. And you, Sean, you should really be into your wife because she went above and beyond. This is a lot better than getting a tie for your birthday or a pair of shoes or even a black Signature Series Star Wars figure. The Target now raised the price to $12.99, those jerks. Okay, I digress. Maybe not as cool as a reaction figure, but that's debatable. So, I hope I haven't bored the rest of the people to tears. But now I'll get 10,000 birthday requests. It doesn't matter to me. The show is whatever it is. I don't care if I spend, 12, 13 minutes talking about what I want to talk about before I talk about the rest of what I want to talk about. Is it not everything I want to talk about anyways? Isn't that what the show is? And while we're on thanking people, I'd like to thank my friend Claudio, who gave us a complete VIP tour of the Warner Brothers backlot last Friday. Oh my God, did we have so much fun. They do offer a public tour, which looked to be pretty amazing too. So if you're in town and you're going to like Universal Studios, don't forget that just down the road, Warner Brothers has their own particular tour. There's no rides on it except for a golf cart, but the props are amazing. I think I'm going to do a mini episode this week about that, so I'm not going to talk a lot about that because I do have a couple days off and I will spend them doing a couple of extra bonus episodes because those make me happy and I don't have to do these big marathons. So, welcome to 91 Reasons. I am the voice, Jeff Tucker. I am the guy that you're listening to in your car, your boat, your DeLorean, your spaceship. Hello to everyone in Spaceship, the International Space Station. Don't you hate it in Armageddon when they get to the big space station and that guy goes, "This is a Russian space station." Like, thank you. That was for all the idiots who maybe they went to get popcorn and they weren't aware of like the floating spaceship in above Earth, what it was. I don't even know how as an actor you even say that line without feeling stupid. Anywho. No, today we're going to talk about a cult classic that Hindle handpicked for me, which is the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Now, the Rocky Horror Picture Show came out in the mid-'70s. It was marketed as a different kind of Rocky, a different set of jaws, the poster with the lips on it. And I have to tell you, growing up in the 70s and then maturing in the 80s, I was always vaguely aware of Rocky Horror. I had a couple of movie trivia books, and I had a couple of makeup books because I was a nerd. I know, big shock. I had movie makeup books, and they had pictures of Tim Curry and Richard O'Brien as Riff Raff. And you know what? The pictures that they had always, as a young man, kind of frightened me because they would show Tim Curry in panties and a garter belt, and Riff Raff had that shaved top head. And you know what? I was always a little put off by it. Part of that being that I was curious what it was about, scared that I would like it too much. It kind of went hand in hand with my teenage obsession of Betty Page and the whole 50s kitschy sort of aesthetic of cheesecake and pinup, and how the idea of what women were supposed to look like with, the whole garters and all that. So it was all sort of mixed up in that, and I didn't quite understand what it could possibly be about. The font of the title in the dripping blood is kind of off-putting. So I didn't see Rocky Horror until probably 1986. I was 14, almost ready to turn 15, and David Lewis and I, my old movie buddy David Lewis, we went to the Alondra 6 for the midnight showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And there was probably about maybe 30 or 40 people there. Now, they didn't go all out. It wasn't a full, I'm sure, I've not been in a few years, but I imagine now it's a full-blown production of every kind of prop and costume. And with cosplay being so big, the productions must be equal to a Broadway show or, a high-end high school production just in front of the screen. It must be like that. I think I'm going to try and go see it very soon, just so I can get a flavor for what it is now and what it means to people. Because I saw it that first time, and it was shocking. Because I'll tell you, as a high school theater nerd, and of course I was a high school nerd. Of course I was president of the Thespian Troop 1600 at Norwalk High. I loved musicals. I didn't really promote them a lot at school because I can't sing. I can't sing a note. So we did musicals at high school. We did Grease. We did Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. We did West Side Story. And, I didn't have an actual line of scripted dialogue until 1987 West Side Story because I can't sing. And when I became president of the drama club, I told the teacher, Maggie Regalato, Maggie we called her, I said, I can't sing. Why don't we just do some plays? So we were finally able to do plays, and that's where I really got the acting bug. Because musicals are one thing, but acting in a play and adopting a persona and becoming somebody else, that was very appealing because the actual world that I lived in was full of people who wanted to beat me up, and I had drunks and Don Berg at the house. So I escaped through theater. I escaped into other worlds. I became Algernon in The Importance of Being Earnest. And I became Jack in Charlie's Aunt. And by my senior year, I decided I would write the play we were going to do. So I wrote a 3-act monstrosity that was huge with 35 speaking roles. So when I went and saw Rocky Horror, I was into it. I may not have been able to sing, but I loved musicals. I loved the movie version of Little Shop of Horrors and Chorus Line and, oh my gosh, to some degree, Annie. But you name it, I loved Annie because I discovered Annie after Rocky Horror because Tim Curry's in it. And Tim Curry was a big draw for me. Tim Curry was one of the coolest guys around. He still is. But David and we went to the midnight showing and we watched the few people there. They weren't acting out stuff in front of the screen. We hadn't progressed to that yet. But they did have all the props. So during there's a light at the Frankenstein place. When it's raining, they were using their squirt guns to make it rain. We had newspaper. We threw toast. And it was just so much fun. Like, for a guy like me who loved going to the movies, this was like going to the movies on amped up on Jolt Cola, because the movie literally in the theater came off the screen at you and you were part of it. So there was so much fun to that. Now, it took me 3 or 4 viewings to even understand the plot of Rocky Horror, because you're not going to the movie for the plot. You're going for the spectacle. You're going for the message, which of course we'll get to. But the plot's very convoluted. It took a few viewings for me to even get to it. So when Eddie comes out of the freezer after Frankenfurter has made Rocky, like, you don't even know what's going on. It's not until way later in the movie that he goes, I really shouldn't have split Eddie and Eddie's brain between him and Rocky both. Like, okay, that makes sense now. But again, you're not going for the plot. This is a cult classic. When this movie came out, it bombed. And you can understand why. Like, if you're just sitting there passively watching it, and I passively watched it last night, even though I couldn't help myself, but add in a few audience participation lines. Like, you just can't help it. But if you're just watching it passively, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And its message of decadence and being yourself, while a positive message, probably went over a lot of people's heads in the 70s. Because there wasn't a lot of repression. I mean, 70s was the height of the sexual revolution. So everybody's having sex with everybody. So on screen, it's just there's another guy having sex. I mean, they had that club up in New York, Club Nero, was it? Where everybody was having sex with everybody. So seeing it on screen, while shocking today and definitely shocking in 1986, was not that shocking when it was released. I know that that's a weird thing to say, but we hadn't discovered AIDS yet, and AIDS dismantled everything that the passionate people of the sexual revolution had built up. AIDS was like the big stop. If you have sex now, you will die. And we were, by the Generation X, we're the only ones who got screwed on that. I don't know if I've mentioned that in a previous episode. I may have, because it's one of my standard speeches. But like in this, up until the late 60s to the late 70s, everybody was having sex with everybody. That's how you did that instead of shaking hands. And then AIDS came around, and the government told us, Generation X, if you have sex, you're going to die. Well, then Magic Johnson got AIDS and he didn't die. And the drugs got so good that you could live with the HIV virus. It's not a good, healthy life, but you can live nonetheless. It's not the death sentence that it was in the beginning. So now the generation, because of the internet and all the sexting that goes on and the hookups and Tinder and Grindr, they're living the sexual revolution that Generation X, just Generation X, was denied. Isn't that interesting? So look at us in the middle from 76 to 86, how times changed so much that a movie that was tame in the 70s, in the 80s, takes on a significance of, well, look at these deviants. They're dressing how they want. Frankenfurter's dressed as a woman, and he's sleeping with Brad and Janet on the same night within minutes of each other. We can't have this, and that's why people flock to it. Maybe it became a cult classic and found its footing along the way, because the prudish 80s brought on the barriers to having fun. And here was a movie saying, no, you can do what you want. Frankenfurter dies for it, but he dies having lived exactly the way he wanted to live. And that's what makes him such a compelling character. So I watched this movie with my two sons last night, 17 and 14. And the one thing they had to say, like, they're so worldly that the sexual aspects of it, I mean, while funny and a little shocking, weren't really that shocking to them. Look, I mean, we've come another 20 years and we found that now the ideals are becoming tame again. I mean, Rocky Horror seems kitschy and tame today. So it started out mild, turned into this crazy taboo no-no message movie, and now it's tame. That's an interesting dynamic and an interesting road for a movie to take. But my opinion only comes from a guy who grew up and rarely left California. So maybe my observations and conclusions are off base on this movie, because I know somebody who works in the she works in the adult film industry as a producer, who told me that Rocky Horror, when she saw it in her small town of Michigan, changed her life, because she knew that she had a different viewpoint than the people who she lived with and moved around in circles with. And here was a movie where at the end, after all the debauchery and decadence and sleeping around and being whatever you want to be, the characters literally look into the camera and say, "Don't dream it, be it." So she packed up and left. So it worked on her. And what a message that is. What a message that is. You know, the whole movie has this underlying theme of people doing whatever they want and sleeping with whoever they want, and the sexual awakening of America. And I mean, Brad and Janet represent little town Denton, America. You know, unsullied. Janet's a virgin before she gets married. And look at the beginning where Ralph gets married, where on the side of the car it says she got hers, now he'll get his, basically saying, look, he married her, now they're going to have sex because that's what he was paying for. And Brad gets down on a knee and proposes to Janet right at the beginning, and the idea that she's going to save herself for marriage as well. So when they show up at Frankenfurter's castle in the middle of the night, and suddenly they're stripped down to their underwear, this is the sexual awakening of these two characters. Janet discovers a world she never even knew existed when Frankenfurter seduces her, and then she turns right around and turns from mild-mannered Janet into this sex-crazed woman who then seduces Rocky. Who knew she could seduce anyone? And there she is seducing Rocky, who's so naive, he doesn't even know what's going on. But he's got enough of Eddie's brain to be heterosexual, which just pisses Frankenfurter off to no end. I mean, that's what he's more upset about. And then look at Brad. Brad gets seduced by Frankenfurter, and the next scene, he's wearing like a little kimono robe and acting like the jealous boyfriend whenever Frankenfurter looks at anybody. It's hysterical. Hysterical statement on sexual politics. And then when Dr. Scott shows up, he represents the man. He's the government. You know, he works for the federal government with the UFOs. And just when you think he's there to like put a damper on everything, because at the end during the floor show, he's sitting there idle. He's not part of it, except when he takes off his blanket, he's wearing the stockings too. So it just shows you, and that's probably some subversive message about J. Edgar Hoover and how the top echelons of the government, the people telling us what to do, were themselves not following their own advice or their own commands. And isn't that the way of the world? Do as I say, not as I do. But through it all, Frankenfurter remains the constant, because he starts off the film as a deviant, and at the end, when faced with death, when faced with dying or changing, he chooses death. He knows Riff Raff's going to shoot him. He has no illusion that they're going home. And he basically says, this is who I am. And isn't it such a touching turn of events when he sings about wanting to be, whatever happened to Fay Ray? And he's not singing about how beautiful she is, except as much as he wanted to be dressed like her. So then when he gets killed and Rocky takes him to the top of the RKO tower, he's become Fay Ray to Rocky's King Kong. It's very touching, in a sick, perverted, fun way. Fun way, right? It's a really cool movie with a lot of subtext. It takes multiple viewings to figure out why Columbia is so angry and upset when Eddie gets killed. Or how nobody even really reacts when they find out they're eating Eddie at the dinner table. That's a very tender subject, Dr. Scott. Like, they just sort of move on to the next scene. I mean, they all get pissed off, and he ends up using the machine to zap them to the floor. Which, God, isn't that a playground game? I mean, isn't Frankenfurter's molecular machine that sticks him to the floor just the movie equivalent of red light, green light to the nth degree? And I remember seeing the movie, again, 86 when I saw it. By that time, Susan Sarandon's already a big star. And I just remember thinking, like, how did they get her in this? Like, I get Tim Curry's having a blast. I mean, who wouldn't want to be Frankenfurter? The coolest guy in the room. The guy so sure of himself. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. That's somebody to aspire to. So he's wearing garter belts and stockings, and of course, who cares? The message wrapped up in all that femininity is that this guy is going to be whatever he wants, no matter what anybody thinks, even if it means he's going to die for it. Isn't that the cross-dressing equivalent of those poor French cartoonists who got shot last week? The ones who said, I'd rather be afraid on my feet than die on my knees, or something to that effect? I mean, that's what it's all about. That's it. That's it, right? In a nutshell. But look at the movie itself. Look at the movie Rocky Horror itself. It was adapted from the stage play by Richard O'Brien, who plays Riff Raff. And it's a movie unlike any movie on your shelf. And I own it, so I can say on my shelf. Because when it came out, this is before Star Wars. And Star Wars is the changer. Jaws signaled the beginning of the blockbuster status of movies, that people would go see a movie again and again all summer, that if you opened a good movie in May, that people would go watch it all through summer, all through fall. Star Wars played for over a year. Jaws signaled the beginning of it, and Star Wars completely solidified it. And right in between that, Hollywood was still taking chances on movies. There were no focus groups. There were no surveys. There was no internet Twitter feed to figure out what people want. There was simply executives and people in charge of production who made movies that they thought were interesting and might make a few bucks. It wasn't about making $1 billion. It was about diversifying the film slate and bringing prestige projects to your studio. And I'm sure the guy who greenlit Rocky Horror, I don't know the budget offhand, but I'm sure it wasn't very much. There aren't very many sets, and the effects in it are laughable. The laser beams are ridiculous. The castle taking off into the sky is simply camera trickery. But who knew, and that executive didn't know, who knew that his decision to put this movie into production would probably, in the end, generate over $200 or $300 million for the studio. That's a really low ballpark figure. I bet it's much higher. I bet Rocky Horror has sold as much or more tickets than even the biggest blockbusters that played for as long as they did. Rocky Horror has been playing nearly 40 years. We're going to come up in 2016? On the 40-year anniversary of Rocky Horror? That's ridiculous. And it's still playing. No one could have predicted that. Nobody in their right mind. My brother used to go see The Song Remains the Same every Friday night at Alondra 6. And there we were, 2 theaters apart, him watching Song Remains the Same, which I tried to watch, and it's not a movie, but a concert with a little bit of footage. And there I am 2 theaters over watching Rocky Horror. The midnight movie, man. It doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, they try now and then. But when Rocky Horror was put into production, nobody had any idea that it was going to be this cult classic. You can't predict, nor can you artificially create a cult classic. It just has to happen. Because I've seen subversive musicals since then. You know, I've seen Reefer Madness, which is really good, but it's not a cult classic. You know, Little Shop of Horrors, but it's not a cult classic. You know, are there any other musicals? You know, Purple Rain doesn't count. Graffiti Bridge definitely doesn't count. Under the Cherry Moon, no. What about I'll Do Anything, the Albert Brooks musical with all the music by Prince, and then right before it was released at theaters, they cut all the music out. You know, there wouldn't be a big mega musical till what? Moulin Rouge? Is Moulin Rouge a cult classic? It was nominated for Best Picture, so I don't think it counts as a cult classic. You know, yes, it's weird using all the modern day music in the old school style, but it's not a cult classic. You know, there's only room for one musical cult classic, and it's Rocky Horror. It's the king of them. And my kids were remarking to me about how many songs there were in it, because they're used to musicals now where it's either Sweeney Todd or Les Mis, where it's songs from end to end, or it's some of the others, Annie or such, where there's 20 minutes of dialogue and then they get to a song and then it's back to 20 minutes of dialogue. Rocky Horror doesn't do that. Rocky Horror has huge patches where there's tons of music and then they do a little dialogue. And when they do, what do? They do Sword of Damocles, and then I Can Make You a Man, and then Whatever Happened to Rock and Roll, and then they go back to What I Can Make You a Man. All where there's no hardly any dialogue. It's just all music. But it's all really good music. You know, Rocky Horror is very catchy, and you find yourself singing along. Now, my favorite song in the whole show is Rose Tint My World, just because it's so catchy and so strong at the end. When they all jump out of the pool and they're doing that kick line to Rose Tint My World, it's basically saying, I'm going to make the world however I want it to be. And that's how I'm going to get by. And what a great message that is. Yes, to some degree in our real lives, we all have to conform to whatever the norm, and I'm doing air quotes. We all have to conform to whatever that is. But in the confines of our bedroom, in the confines of our private life, we get to be and do whatever we want. You know, the soaring human spirit is encapsulated in Rose Tint My World, which is ironic because they're all captured at that point by Frankenfurter and being forced to sing it. Think about that. They're being forced to sing a song of rebellion and freedom while they're under the control of Frankenfurter. That's irony. That's irony. But it's a Tim Curry tour de force. And Tim Curry would cement himself as a genre genius in Legend and Clue, and his great turn in Red October as the ship's doctor. You know, Curry's always been I'm a huge fan of Tim Curry. I would love to meet him one day. I think time is running out as we're both getting older. But what a talented guy. And when you watch him on screen in Rocky Horror, he is fearless. He is definitely practicing what he preaches in the movie, because he's fearless. And it's not just the songs. It's in a lot of just the tender dialogue moments where, when do you have any tattoos, Brad? Oh, too bad. How about you? Like, he's just so cool and debonair and suave. He's a transvestite James Bond. Like, he's seducing everybody. Like, if they made James Bond bisexual and we watched a James Bond movie where he was like seducing everybody, that would be Frankenfurter. And what a subversive retelling of the Frankenstein story, where Dr. Frankenstein is making a creature not to defy science, although that's part of it, but so that he himself can be loved. Isn't Frankenfurter a little lonely in that? You get that there's a relationship between him and Columbia that didn't go anywhere because he couldn't decide if he wanted a man or a woman. So he's making this Adonis god to sleep with him. And what does he do? First thing out, he sleeps with Janet. Although, did him and Rocky sleep together when they were retired to their somber bridal suite? I don't know. It's hard to tell. It's not in the dialogue. Because if they did, if he does sleep with Rocky, then the minute he finishes, he goes right up and seduces Janet. And then he goes right up and seduces Brad. So Frankenfurter's all over the place. Like, he's the ultimate definition of a man whore in that sense. But I really enjoyed watching it on the big screen that first time I saw it. And I've seen it a few times since, here and there. I also worked at Blockbuster Video when it was announced it was coming on home video. And, a lot of people didn't believe it because it's one thing for a movie to have a theatrical release, and when that theatrical release ends, you then sell it to home video and then to cable and then to regular TV. But Rocky Horror was an anomaly because it was still playing. It was still playing in theaters. So this was what? I want to say 90, 91. And we put the poster up and people were like, that's really coming out? Like, yeah, it's coming out. They were like, well, why? I can go see it in the theater. Well, because people want to see it at home. Like, they do? They do. Are we supposed to talk to the TV? Well, you can if you want to, sir. If you want to make toast and squirt guns and newspaper and whatever in the privacy of your own home, now you can. If you want to dress up like Frankenfurter, then yes, you can. Yes, you can, in the privacy of your own home, sir. And then when it came out, it was I think, if I'm getting this right, it was a strict rental only because it was not priced at sell-through yet. I think it was about $60 if you wanted to buy it. And that really upset people who wanted to own it. And I kept telling him, just wait till we sell it as a previously viewed cassette, i.e. used. And when we finally put them on sell-through, or not sell-through, but PVT, previously viewed tape, I think, most of them came out about $8, $9. We priced Rocky Horror like $16, $17, and we sold out because there was a real demand for that back in the day. Huge demand of people who wanted to own it because it's not every day that a watershed movie like that means so much to people. Like, a lot of people take Rocky Horror and point to it as, that's the movie that told me it was okay to be different. Like, that's a rare thing to point to a movie like that. My friend Lorelei points to it and says, that's the movie. I watched that and I left Michigan. Like, that's powerful. That's a powerful message to come off the silver screen. To have one of the characters look at you in the darkened theater and say, it's okay. What you're doing is okay. You're not different. Everybody's different. There is no normal. They try to do that now with kid shows where Dora looks to the TV is like, hola, you're special. No, we're not special. But it's okay to be different. Maybe that's the wrong message that we're sending and why the millennials are so maligned. Because they've spent their whole lives being told by all the cartoon characters that talk directly to them that they're special and wonderful. And my generation grew up with a transvestite telling me it was okay to be weird. There's a little bit of difference there. And we filter it. And we process it differently. Another very strange Rocky Horror adventure was I dated this girl in high school who, her parents didn't really dig me. So even though we were technically dating, I'm doing air quotes again, they were constantly trying to find different boys for her to hang out with. Like, maybe if she finds a better one, she won't want to hang out with Jeff. So her mom found this guy who, of course, wanted to take her to see Rocky Horror. And I was like, you can't go see Rocky Horror. You don't know what goes on there. It's debauchery, especially if you've never been. If you're a Rocky Horror virgin, the first time you see it, you are subjected to public displays of humiliation and debauchery. And she's like, well, I'm going, and you're not allowed to go. And I was like, well, okay, whatever. Mom doesn't want you to go. Okay, fine, I won't go. So she ends up going to Rocky Horror. So, of course, Greg and I found out what theater it was. We waited till the last minute. We bought tickets, we went in, sat down in the back row. Yes, I know, in the back row. And I was just there to make sure nothing happened. And you know what? Yeah, it was just dumb, put a lollipop between your knees or something. I don't know. It was all pretty silly. But, it was those weird moments of like, I'm in the back row with Greg Stone watching Rocky Horror while the girl I'm dating up front is having this big party. It was really weird. Like, what the hell's going on? I've gone through the looking glass again and landed in Weirdsville. But isn't that what Rocky Horror is? She was dreaming it and being it, and I was watching it from the back row. Michael Rainey was ill the day the earth stood still. But it's a really interesting movie. And watching it again last night with fresh eyes, like I know all the little ins and outs. I love the narrator, the guy from James Bond. It just adds that weird touch to. One of my favorite moments in the movie is during the time warp. And God, isn't the time warp so freaking overused at every Halloween event? Can we officially retire the time warp? Like, the time warp has been so watered down because of Halloween events. And I'm speaking of my own, actually, and the other ones I've seen where, the middle of the song is about a pelvic thrust that drives you insane, and they just cut that out, or they sing something else, and it's like, you guys are kind of missing the point of this song. This song is about sexual liberation on the planet Transylvania and the galaxy of transsexual, or the planet transsexual and the galaxy of Transylvania, however it turns out, right? But one of my favorite moments is they just randomly cut back to the guy's office, and he's on the desk, and he goes, "It's just a jump to the left." And in my head, I'm thinking about the 4 hours it took to set that shot up. They help that poor guy up on his desk, and he goes, "It's just a jump to the left." And they go, "Cut it, print it, we got it, let's move on." And it's like, he must have thought it was crazy. Like, I don't know, did they ever interview the narrator and ask him, like, Charles Gray, I think his name is. Like, they ever interview him and go, "Did you have any idea what you were a part of?" Like, did he know? Because he plays it dead serious. It's also true that their tire was in need of some air, and you go, like your neck, and you go, this guy's playing it real. He's playing it as real as Leslie Nielsen in all the Naked Gun movies. And that's what makes those so funny, because he's never winking at the audience. Frankenfurter, like 5 times during the movie, looks right at us and winks or gives us a look like, "Are you getting all this in?" And like, my favorite is when he goes, "You got caught with a flat," and he goes, "Well, how about that?" Like, that's funny stuff. But the narrator, even though he is talking to us, he's taking it all very seriously. Very into it. And I think that's indicative of just about everybody in the film. Nobody is phoning it in on this movie. Tim Curry is living that role. When he's on the screen, Frankenfurter is alive. Brad, he's fantastic. Barry Bostwick, the star of Megaforce, Deeds Not Words, Megaforce. It's funny, we just after the DCA episode where my kids and I talked for 2 hours at California Adventure, we discovered this pre-opening video that we put on the page where Barry Bostwick and Richard Kind go all through DCA looking for the big cheese. It's really bad. But it's like, that's the guy from Rocky Horror. My sons were like, "Oh my God, it's the same dude." He looks a lot like, if you watch Rocky Horror, Brad looks a lot like Cameron in Ferris Bueller. Alan Ruck and him look a lot alike, and the way they play the role is very similar too. Maybe there's something to that. I have no idea. Because Cameron in Ferris Bueller has his own kind of awakening too. He wakes up to standing up to his father, not being repressed. Like, it's all about, in both cases, somebody saying, I'm allowed to be more. I don't have to do just this. Like, Brad is shown a world where he doesn't have to just marry Janet and get a promotion at work like Ralph. He can have this great adventure and find things in him that he had never seen before. And maybe I'm talking a little about what Frankenfurter put in him. You know what I'm saying? But a really cool movie. And I keep saying that, I know, but it is. They've done a few collectibles here and there. I know that there was a line of action figures. I saw them at Suncoast Motion Picture Company. You know, I never picked any up. I do have a Riff Raff figure that I found at the swap meet from that line. But I never picked them up when they came out. I know some of them are a little valuable. I'm sure Frankenfurter's worth the most. But they're not high quality figures. You know, they're certainly not Nika or McFarlane. It would be great if McFarlane picked up the license and made. Do you ever remember those McFarlane monster play sets that they did? And they also did a couple of them for the first Spawn movie. It'd be cool to get some Rocky Horror ones, like if they made little Rocky in his tank and the whole room with the people watching him create and bring Rocky to life for the dinner table. Like, even the floor show. I mean, the floor show would be the best, obviously. But very cool. And it's weird, like, we've been looking into a lot of important moments in gay history as part of a family project that we're doing. And my wife just did some research on the pink triangle that has become the symbol of gay pride. And it was adopted, if I'm remembering correctly, 1974. Well, if you watch the laboratory scene, Frank's wearing it on his scrubs. He's actually wearing the gay pride triangle, the pink triangle. And then when he brings Rocky to life, the tank becomes the rainbow. Like, that's gotta be on purpose. But boy, that was really early adopting of that symbol. And very brave too, like taking a new symbol that means something and saying, we're going to put it in the movie in a movie that supports everything that you're about. I mean, the movie is pro everything. When they say don't dream it, be it, they're talking about every spectrum of sexuality. And Frankenfurter saying, it's okay. You're going to be okay. So I know the UK and the alternate version ends with superheroes. It's not a very good song. Watching it last night, it ends just, I think, where it's supposed to end, with the castle going back to Transylvania and Brad and Janet and Dr. Scott sort of flailing on the ground. If we're to glean anything from it, we can glean that either Dr. Scott was lying about being in a wheelchair, or whatever Frankenfurter did to him caused him to be able to walk. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I really have no idea. But it's obvious from the floor show scenes that Dr. Scott can now walk. And that's changed him forever. And his secret's out as far as the pantyhose and the high heels and such. And Brad and Janet are forever changed. Janet's tasted forbidden fruit, same as Brad. And how can you be the same person after that? How can you go back to your 9 to 5 after seeing such freedom, sexual freedom in the Frankenfurter over at the old Frankenstein place? I'm a big fan of the music. I've got the soundtrack. I've had it for years. I listen to it quite often. There's a Light at the Frankenstein House is a particular favorite. I said Roast at My World is my absolute favorite. But Light at the Frankenstein House is great. I love Riff Raff's solo in that. And I love the image of when the camera pulls away and he's sort of gliding backwards from the window. Like, I just think all that's so cool and so 70s. And if they tried to make it today, you know, MTV was all set to go with a remake of Rocky Horror Picture Show. And thank God that got derailed. You couldn't do it today. You couldn't do it today. Why bother? Why bother when everything on TV already says you can be whatever you want to be, kids, adults? Everybody's free to do what they want to do. They got reality shows about polygamy in Las Vegas. A guy's got 15 wives. You know, they got the Golden Globe Sunday night was won by Transparent, a whole show about transgender people. You know, every piece of ground has been broken, but you can probably trace it all back to the groundbreaking that Rocky Horror did. Because they were doing it before anybody thought that it was a thing. You know, the message of Rocky Horror is so matter of fact that it's not like a call to arms. It's a call to arms now. And it was a call to arms in the 80s. But in the 70s, it was just another movie. It wasn't a message movie. They weren't trying to make a message. Richard O'Brien was just saying, this is what I am, and I'm going to share it with the world. And we thank you, Richard O'Brien. You know, I'm not as big a fan of Shock Treatment, the sequel. It's the lesser-known sequel where Brad and Janet are put on a game show. Obviously, it doesn't have the same thrills that Rocky Horror does. It's more of a dissection of the media as opposed to a dissection of the way the world looks at sexuality. So it's totally different. It's familiar enough that you have fun watching it, but it's certainly not, you know, a direct sequel to Rocky Horror. I mean, but where do you go? If you were going to do a direct sequel, Frankenfurter's dead. He died for his cause. Rocky's dead. Eddie's dead. You know, everybody's broken. And whatever sick and twisted stuff Magenta and Riff Raff are up to as brother and sister, that's their own business. You know, maybe Don't Dream It, Be It should be said, hey kids, settle down a little bit on that, okay? We were talking about everybody else, but not you. Not brother and sister, you know, but thanks anyways. Thanks for playing. Love the outfits, but thanks for playing. But Rocky Horror is great. You can pick it up for like $5 at Walmart. Isn't that weird? Like, think about that. Think about a cult movie that people have picked over, detailed, studied, picketed, exalted, and eventually it ends up in the $5 bin at Walmart. And that's just what a statement on society that is, you know? You can get the bigger deluxe versions, but you just want the movie? Like, I got the it's $5. Watched it last night. The menus are terrible. They've got a fake Tim Curry congratulating you on all your menu choices. Like, oh, just play the movie already. Oh, my God. But there it is, Rocky Horror, man. Pick it up. Watch it. Don't dream it. Be it. Be who you want to be. Not like in the Army sense, but like in your own sexual reality sense, right? I'm a big supporter of that. I hope that's coming through on this episode. Anyways, I want to thank Hendel for his generous Patreon donation. Not that I need any spurring to watch a movie, but it's fun to see what other people pick for me. And for Hendel and Michael, who I'll get to next in the next episode, they were both kind enough to give me a list. Like, I can't just pick one movie. Here's a whole bunch. But Hendel knew that being the kind of guy that I am, I would certainly have some sort of geek or nerd history with Rocky Horror. And I do. I totally do. I mean, having seen it that night in 1986 and being a little bewildered by it and a little shocked. I mean, there's not a lot of nudity. I mean, I don't think there's any nudity in it, except when they are turned into statues, they're completely naked. And it was like, oh, my God, that's crazy. That's Susan Sarandon. You know, she's a big star. But this was before she was a big star. We all make interesting choices when we're young, don't we? So thanks, Hendel, for urging me to watch Rocky Horror. I hope that this episode has lived up to your expectations. I'm sorry that it took so long. Christmas was a killer at Knott's Berry Farm, or Knott's Merry Farm. And I would come home exhausted, both mentally and physically. So they wouldn't have been, if I'd done them in December, they wouldn't have been very good episodes, I'll tell you that, because my mind wasn't in it. I was completely a shell of my former self. But I'm back. I love watching movies. We're going to do more movie reviews, more stories about my childhood. And again, thanks to Hendel and Patreon for his generosity. I can't stress that enough. Your money goes straight to funding and keeping the podcast going. So I really appreciate that. We do have a Patreon page. I don't know if you figured that out. Don't dream it, pledge it is what I'd like to say at the end here. You can find us on Facebook. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, my handle is @The6th_Key, based on my 3 books, The 6th Key, The Lost Station, and The Infinite Backward, all available on Amazon.com as either a beautiful paperback or a Kindle download for only 99 cents. If you're a member of Amazon Prime, the download is free. Once again, happy birthday to Sean from T and Adeline. I hope that your birthday is amazing, that you get whatever you want. If it was me, I would want as many reaction figures as I could get. And would it kill Funko to maybe make a few play sets to go with them? Just cardboard, just like Land of the Jawas, that'd be fine with me. I'd love a Land of the Jawas Escape from New York play set, or Goonies, or you name it. And man, not to get on a reaction tangent, but they just released a list of all the figures that are coming, and some of them are doozies, man. More Pulp Fiction. Finally, we're going to get the Gimp and the Wolf, and they announced Dark Crystal and a whole bunch of others. Jaws. I mean, it's taken this long to get Jaws figures. And along those lines, man, reaction Rocky Horror, that's all I got to say. Those would be the coolest. Frankenfurter in his garters and corset with a plastic vinyl cape when he comes out of the elevator, for Sweet Transvestite. The little plastic cape like Darth Vader's from the Kenner line, that would be awesome. And if it was my birthday like Sean's, that's what I would want for my birthday. So, again, thank you, Hendel. Happy birthday, Sean. My good friend Robbie. My good friend Robbie is a budding filmmaker. He makes some of the funniest shorts on YouTube, and you can find him at Q11 TV on YouTube. That's Q, the number one, and then TV on YouTube. He just did one over the Christmas holiday where he made fun of the song Christmas Shoes, which we were riffing one day in the dressing room, and it all just sort of happened, and he made it happen, and he's a very funny, very talented filmmaker. Check out all his videos on YouTube. And isn't it strange that my goofball little show that I do from my filthy pop culture-filled office, I actually have a list of plugs that I pinned to the wall so that I can remember to say thank you and happy birthday and plug all this stuff. Like, hey, it's like a real show. I become like the Howard Stern show. Jackie the Joke Man Martling and his funny, dirty CDs, 516-922-WINE, or JackieJokeman.com. You can see Fred Norris's band or Stuttering John's band Mund at the Cabaret it's so easy to get right into that. And that's kind of what I've become. So, hey, again, it's 2015. Thank you for listening to this show. I hope you enjoy it. There are many shows to come. Like I said, I've got a few days off this week, so I'm going to crank out a few more while I'm home just because it's fun. Rachel works Wednesday afternoon, so I may be able to do one then. Homestuck episode Wednesday night, as always. I'll be joined by Luna and Austin, the two Homestuck experts on the planet, who will guide us through the Homestuck. I will be bringing you more shows in the future, movie reviews, Don Burke stories, and God only knows what. I have a whole list behind me of stuff I want to put on the show, so there's lots more to talk about. We will be at WonderCon this April, Easter weekend in Anaheim. I'll be wearing my 91 Reasons embroidered vest that Aldo made me. He's a genius artist in his own right. So if you want to find me at WonderCon, either let me know on Facebook to look for you, or just find the guy in the Back to the Future themed 91 Reasons vest, or more importantly, the 6th key table in the small press area where Rachel will be selling copies of my book. And let her know you listen to the show, because that would be really cool, because then we would know that somebody's listening, right? They would be listening to the show that I like to call 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?